All right, let's talk about something we all deal with every single day, our emotions. But today, we're going to look at them through a completely different lens. We're going to step away from the modern idea that feelings are messy or irrational, and instead explore them through a worldview that's thousands of years old, the Indian knowledge system. Let's dive right in.
I mean, think about it. How many times have you heard someone say, "Oh, don't be so emotional," or "You need to think with your head, not your heart"? We're so often taught that our emotions are just inconvenient, that they're these irrational interruptions to our logical minds, something we have to get under control or even just push down. But what if that whole idea is wrong?
This slide pretty much says it all. On the left, you've got the familiar picture, emotion versus reason, locked in this constant battle. But the Indian view offers something totally different. It doesn't see a fight at all. It sees emotion and our thinking as completely integrated, part of the exact same system. From this perspective, emotions aren't just random static. They're an understandable, workable process.
So this brings us right to our first big question. Are our emotions on our side, or are they working against us? This perspective goes way, way back to the Rig Veda, one of the oldest texts in the world. And it presents this absolutely mind-bending idea that the entire universe kicked off with an emotion. It suggests that kama, or desire, wasn't just some personal feeling, but the fundamental cosmic spark that got all of creation going. So from this point of view, emotion isn't just a human thing, it's literally woven into the fabric of reality itself.
Okay, so if emotions aren't the enemy, then what are they? Well, to get a handle on that, we're going to do a quick tour through 6 different really powerful frameworks. And each one gives us a unique way to understand what's going on inside us. First up, the Upanishads. This framework says that tough emotions, like fear or grief, are basically like the check engine light in your car. They aren't the problem themselves, they're a signal. They're telling you that you've made a really basic mistake about who you are, that you've started to see yourself as separate from everything else, when you're actually part of a much bigger unified whole.
Next, Sankhya Yoga gives us this beautiful metaphor. It calls emotions chitta vrittis, which literally means mind fluctuations. Just imagine your mind is a perfectly still, clear lake. Emotions are the ripples and the waves that appear on the surface when the winds of life blow. So the goal of yoga isn't to get rid of the lake, but to understand the wind so the water can become calm again.
Now, Buddhism gets really analytical. It basically puts emotion under a microscope and shows that what feels like a solid permanent thing, like I am an angry person, is actually just a series of fleeting mental events. These events are conditioned. They pop up because of our habits and the way we see things. And here's the game changer. Since they're just temporary processes, not a fixed part of you, you can absolutely change. Let's switch gears completely to Ayurveda, the ancient Indian system of medicine. It says flat out that you cannot separate your emotions from your body. Your personal physical makeup, your unique mix of 3 energies called doshas, actually shapes your emotional patterns. So, for instance, if you have a lot of the fiery pitta dosha, you might be more prone to irritability. Too much of the airy vata dosha could lead to anxiety. It's a true mind-body system.
The Vedanta school circles back to what it sees as one huge philosophical mistake. It says most of our suffering comes from a simple case of mistaken identity. We tend to think that I am my temporary thoughts, I am my fleeting feelings. But Vedanta suggests our real self is something much deeper, the silent, unchanging awareness that just watches all that activity. The key to freedom is realizing you're the witness, not the storm. And finally, from the world of art and aesthetics, we get rasa theory. This is such a cool idea. It suggests that when we experience art, say watching a sad movie, our own personal, messy grief gets transformed into its universal essence, its rasa. We get to feel the emotion in its purest form, but without the personal sting of, this is happening to me. It becomes this shared, almost beautiful experience.
So we've got these different ideas for what emotions are. Now let's move on and see how these traditions explain where our feelings actually come from and what they lead to.
This here maps out a famous psychological process from the Bhagavad Gita, and it's just like watching dominoes fall. Look at how it all starts with something so innocent, just thinking about something. But that simple thought can spark desire. If that desire gets blocked, it quickly curdles into anger. Anger then clouds our judgment, which leads to delusion. And in that final step, our ability to think clearly is just gone. It's an incredible warning for how one little thought can spiral totally out of control. And as you can see here, different systems point to different root causes. Sankhya Yoga, for instance, says it's all about the shifting balance of the gunas, these three basic qualities of nature: clarity, activity, and inertia. Buddhism, on the other hand, zooms in on craving and ignorance. And Ayurveda, as we saw, looks right at our physical body. It's this really rich, multi-layered way of understanding where our feelings start.
So, okay, if we understand what emotions are and where they come from, the next logical question is, what are we supposed to do with them? And this leads to a really profound insight. Emotion isn't some problem we need to get rid of. It's a powerful energy that we can actually harness for our own growth.
And this is exactly how that plays out. In devotional practices, that incredibly intense feeling of love is channeled toward a higher purpose. In Buddhism, compassion isn't just some nice feeling, it's an active practice that fuels your entire journey. In yoga, that restless energy we all feel isn't squashed, it's transformed into the focus you need for deep meditation. Across the board, from health to art to ethics, emotion is reframed as this powerful tool for transformation.
All right, let's head into our final section and connect all of this ancient wisdom to our modern world, because the parallels are pretty amazing.
What's so incredible is that these aren't just historical footnotes. These ideas from thousands of years ago are now being explored and even validated by modern psychology and neuroscience. Take the Buddhist idea that emotion is a process. This ancient insight that our feelings come from how we see and interpret things is the absolute foundation of one of the most effective therapies we have today: cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. The core idea of CBT, that if you change your thoughts, you can change your feelings, is a direct echo of an insight from over 2,000 years ago. It's amazing.
Or how about yoga? Its focus on vairagya, or detachment, which really just means watching your feelings without getting totally swept away by them. Well, that's precisely what modern psychology calls emotional regulation. The mindfulness techniques that are so popular now come directly from these ancient practices designed to calm the mind.
And remember Ayurveda's claim that our body type shapes our emotional life? Today, modern fields like affective neuroscience are all over this. Scientists are now mapping the incredible two-way street between our gut bacteria, our hormones, and our moods, confirming that deep mind-body connection that this ancient system understood all along.
So this quote really just sums it all up perfectly, doesn't it? In this big picture view, emotion isn't good or bad. It's just a powerful force. If you leave it unchecked, sure, it can be a challenge. But when you meet it with understanding, with practice, and with a little creativity, it becomes one of your greatest tools for growth.
And that really brings us to the most important point of all. The goal isn't to get rid of your emotions, but to totally change your relationship with them. So the question I want to leave you with is this: how can you start to see your own emotional world not as a battlefield you have to win, but as a landscape to be explored, a source of wisdom, of energy, and of deeper connection? Thanks for joining me.